Welcome back. Welcome to part 3 of our 12-part series called Turning the Page, a self-guided Recovery Dharma book study course where we go through the entirety of the Recovery Dharma workbook. And if you don't have a copy of the book, get a copy of the book. If you don't have a copy of the Recovery Dharma workbook, there will be a link for a PDF of a free PDF of the Recovery Dharma workbook in the description below. Additionally, if you go to recoverydharma.org, you can also order books from them, or if you go to Amazon or pretty much any online retailer, you can get a copy of the Recovery Dharma workbook. So that fun stuff said, we are on part 3 of our 12-part series of the Recovery Dharma book study course. And in this episode, this video, this segment, we're going to be talking about Buddha, awakening Buddha, and going through pages, I think it's like 1 through 5 or something. So yeah, we'll have something up on the screen about that. Yeah, so let's talk about that. Okay. Awakening Buddha. Awakening Buddha. We're finally into actual page numbers at this point. Yay! Real page numbers. No more Roman numerals, because Roman numerals are really confusing to say in meetings, online and elsewhere. Of page XIII. Man, I mean, I get it from a format perspective, but like it causes challenges with our in-person meetings. I'm just gonna throw it out there. So. Anyways, that aside, if you're new to these videos, if you're new to the course, as we go through the Recovery Dharma book together, each segment we will touch on what is the overarching theme of the segment we're covering. And then from there, I'm going to cover 2 or 3 quotes that stood out to me on any given section. In person, we jokingly call this What Did You Highlight game. So if you're reading along, I would encourage you to read the sections ahead of time and then highlight the things that stand out to you in your copy of the book, so that when we go through these videos together, you can be like, oh, I highlighted the same thing, or, oh, hey, James, you missed my favorite part. And if I miss your favorite part, let me know in the comments below. My favorite part got missed. I'll be like, okay, sorry. We'll try better next time. So, and just remember, forgiveness is a practice. So, that aside, let's jump into the section of Awakening Buddha. The part that I want to start off with, when we're talking about this section, I love the fact that right off the bat, as somebody who lives in the Midwest, this comes up in my meetings with people who are first being exposed to Buddhist practices and Buddhist philosophy, is this question, and it starts on the top of page 3. So, what does the Buddha have to do with recovery? Heck yeah, let's just cut to the chase. What does the Buddha have to do with recovery? So, the paragraph then goes on to read, there are 2 ways in which we use the word Buddha. Yeah, there's two ways to use the word Buddha, which translates, or it means awakened. First, it is the title. It is the title given to Siddhartha Gautama, a prince who lived in modern-day Nepal and India roughly 2,500 years ago. I'm told it's 2,600 years ago, but we'll go with the text saying 2,500 years ago. After many years of scholarly study, meditation, and ethical practice, he was awakened to the nature of human suffering and discovered a path. He discovered a path that leads to the end of suffering and the freedom that comes from awakening. After his awakening, Siddhartha became known as the Buddha, which is a title. Again, and we can also kind of get into a side on what the word awakened means. As someone who's an optimistic agnostic, I think Jack Kornfield has some very, very good commentary on how to interpret the word awakened. My favorite interpretation of the word awakened is optimal mental health. Yeah, like if someone's awakened, they have optimal mental health. Yeah, so we'll get into that later. To finish off the paragraph that I do want to share with you, though, is the second use. So that's the first use, is it's a title. Okay, so Buddha means you have the title. Anybody can be Buddha. You have the title of being awakened, an awakened one. And if you want to go down the rabbit hole of Jack Kornfield's interpretation of the word awaken, it means, hey, you have optimal mental health. You seem like a pretty chill dude. You seem pretty laid back. The second use of the word Buddha follows from the first. Buddha can refer not only to the historical figure, he was a person, he was a dude, but also the idea of awakening. The fact that each of us has within ourselves the potential to awaken to the same understanding as the original Buddha. When we take refuge in the Buddha, we take refuge not in Siddhartha as a person, but in the fact that he was able to find freedom from the suffering, and so can we. Um, this will be highlighted a little bit more in the other paragraphs that I'm going to highlight in today's video, but key themes in this section of the book. You're saying to yourself, hey, I've never been exposed to Buddhism before. Who's the Buddha? What's the Buddha? What's this Buddha stuff mean? Buddha, loose translation, it's just a title. Like anybody can be a Buddha. It means awakened. Awakened can mean optimal mental health. It can mean a lot of other things as well. But that's my interpretation. And when I work with people, that's how I describe it to people. And when we take refuge in the Buddha, Siddhartha, Uncle Sid, who is a person, it's not that, and let's just lay it out there. I'm from the Midwest, so I have to deal with a lot of Bible Belt situations. You're not like worshiping the Buddha. It's not like putting him on a pedestal in that regard. It's much more saying this individual has achieved this thing. Oh, hey, if they can do it, I can probably do it too. It's kind of like saying Michael Jordan played basketball really, really well. You know what? That gives me an aspiration that I can probably play basketball a little bit better. Beethoven or someone playing piano really, really well. Can you tell that I listen to a lot of piano music? Because I just rattled off a famous pianist like no other right there. Anyways, anybody who's achieved a certain thing to a great degree of success can be an aspirational role model of sorts, which leads us into the second quote. Bear with me. It's on page 2. So many of us, and this really leads into the big point that I want to share with you, and this is one of the fun points that I share with people when I work with them. So many of us have hearts that are still in pain from the suffering we've experienced. Some have undergone trauma, which often lead us to seek temporary relief in our addictive behavior, which unintentionally added more suffering to our original wounds. We try to protect ourselves by running from the pain, putting on a mask, pushing people away for fear of being vulnerable, all to adapt to what often feels like a hostile world. We start to recover when we let ourselves believe in and rediscover our pure, radiant, and courageous heart where we find our potential for awakening resides. Who were we before the world got to us? Who are we beyond the obsession of our conditioned minds? Who are we beneath all our walls and heartbreak? Despite the trauma, addiction, fear, and shame, there is still a centered part of us that remains whole. There is a part of us that is not traumatized, that is not addicted, that is not ruled by fear or shame. This is where wisdom comes from, and it's the foundation of our recovery. Love that. I love it, love it, love it. This is alluding to the concept of Buddha nature. And this is where I get my recovery at. And this is what I want to share with you. It's the concept of Buddha nature, inner goodness. And it's this process of why are we going on this journey of Buddhist recovery together? Why are we bothering to go through this book together? Why are we bothering to commit to a practice? Why are we bothering to sit and meditate? Why are we bothering to do these inquiries? And it all ties in with this thing that I call the story of the Golden Buddha. The story of the Golden Buddha is very well known in Buddhist communities of all type. Jack Kornfield covers it in detail in his book, The Wise Heart. But the story of the Golden Buddha, and it's a beautiful analogy of the journey that you're going on, the journey that I go on in recovery, is that back in the early 1900s, and this is based on a true story, in Southeast Asia, there was this golden statue of a very large golden Buddha, very large golden Buddha. And what happened was one of the surrounding nations was invading the other country, and the monastery, the monks knew that the invading army was going to probably capture the monastery and then melt down the golden Buddha and sell it off for war bonds. And so the monks, out of fear of wanting to protect their golden Buddha, this golden Buddha statue, they ended up covering it up with caking it with all these layers of mud and clay and disguising it. In that they disguised the golden Buddha as this plain old muddy, dirty clay dirt Buddha. And what happened, and this is a true story, the invading army takes the monastery. They then kill all the monks at the monastery, and the secret of the Golden Buddha is lost for the next 80 years. This statue stays in Southeast Asia for 80 years as just a dirty clay Buddha, which there's many of, many stone Buddhas. And it was only later when they went to try to move the Buddha, they bring in a crane, and it was a very hot summer, as the story goes. And they try to move the Buddha, and they're trying to be protective of it. But as they move it, they realize it's way, way, way heavier than they thought it was. And it actually starts to crack. It cracks at the bottom of this clay statue. And so they stop. They're like, hey, 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 this thing's way heavier. It seems to be more fragile than what we thought it was. Let's come back. We'll get a bigger crane, what have you. But that night, one of the monks, concerned about the integrity of the statue, goes in with a flashlight and starts to shine into the cracks of the golden of this clay Buddha. And all of a sudden, it starts to reflect back at him, and he sees the gold. And so as they start to dig into it, they're like, "Oh, this isn't a clay Buddha. This is a golden Buddha." And so they uncover underneath the clay Buddha, and is now the second largest statue of Buddha in Southeast Asia. And it's the analogy that it's the transformation that all of us go through recovery. That in active addiction, so many of us had to take on layer after layer of protective clay and mud of these defense mechanisms over the years that we forget the golden Buddha within us, the Buddha nature within us, the inner goodness that we all have. It is this fundamental Buddhist idea that all living beings have this inner goodness to them. No matter how badly we have suffered in our active addictions, we all have Buddha nature to us. We all have this inner goodness to us. And that's what these two paragraphs are alluding to. It's that, who were we before the world got to us? Before we had to put on masks and we were pushing people away, and all these layers of protectiveness of creating this clay Buddha exterior. That through recovery, through the practice, through meditation, through inquiry, through coming together in Sangha, you and I can rediscover our Buddha nature, our inner goodness, our golden Buddha within. And it's a beautiful, beautiful journey. It's a beautiful practice. It's a beautiful recovery journey. The last thing I did want to share, there's two other themes in here that as you read through, it talks on the concept of dukkha. Definitely research dukkha. It also talks about the concept of impermanence at one point, I believe, in here. But the thing that I wanted to close on, yes, it does talk about impermanence here. The thing I wanted to close on, to try to keep this as punctual as possible, I've definitely gone over my time on this video. Outside the story of the Golden Buddha and rediscovering your inner goodness and being able to take refuge in the fact that there was this monk from 2,600 years ago who developed this systematic retraining of our hearts and minds. And some would argue that Siddhartha was the world's first cognitive behavioral therapist, and that as the world's first cognitive behavioral therapist, he gave us the tools and a system of retraining our hearts and minds to rediscover our own inner goodness, that we no longer have to be driven by addictive behaviors and craving. That at the bottom of page 4, I love the line, all of us, even the most addicted, the most lost, can find our way to awakening because we all have the ability to access the pure, wise, and true nature within each of us. That is the Buddha nature. That is the story of the Golden Buddha. That is the story of Buddhist recovery. And that is why we go on this journey. That is why we commit to the practice. That's why we learn meditation, why we sit in Sangha. It's why we commit to the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path. It's why we do what we do. It's why we commit to continual growth as we go through here. It's a beautiful path of recovery. It's a beautiful program. I hope you embrace it wholeheartedly as I did. I would encourage you after this video, reflect on, what is your Buddha nature? What does Buddha nature mean to you? What is your inner goodness? What does it mean to rediscover your own inner goodness mean to you? Inquire about those questions. Traditionally, when I work with people, we talk about Buddha nature and that inner goodness and rediscovering that within ourselves in recovery. And yeah, definitely do that. It's a fun exercise. And then next week, we're going to talk about the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path. Actually, we're just talking about the Four Noble Truths. Yeah, I'm not getting. We get into each of the eightfolds later on, but in next video in this segment, we're going to talk about the Four Noble Truths. We're going to talk about them as a group. They are 4 different segments in the book, but we're going to talk about them as a group. So, yeah. And as always, if you found these videos of use and of help, please help us out with the algorithm. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. All of that stuff helps boost our ranking in the algorithm, which allows other addicts to find us on YouTube. I just touched my microphone there. I wonder if that was like a loud bump or not. I don't know. So, and this is how I end videos. I start rambling. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.